let's begin.
Let's begin. All righty. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening or this afternoon, wherever it is that you are. I just wanted to welcome you all and say a little thank you, first of all, to Mal for doing this presentation with us. This is the second time he's done this week. And the reason, if you don't know Malcolm, he came to the Asea business a little bit over 2 years ago. I'll ask him actually to share where he was at when he came to the business. But in that amount of time, which has now been about, a bit over 2 years, he's gone from zero to creating a high six-figure income. And what's exciting about that is that that's residual leverage and expanding income from this opportunity that you equally have on your hands tonight. And that is largely because we believe that we have a perfect storm here of an incredible company, a wonderful breakthrough technology, and the incredible team that we're all part of and work with. Now, at the head of this team, we have Danny and Malcolm, who are considered as amongst the fastest and most experienced builders of this. They have both global organizations. I've been really lucky to work closely with these guys and to really see that one of the key things that they're very good at is personal sponsorship and connecting with people every single day, consistently and persistently. And it's really exciting to see that the way that they do that. So I thought, you know what, let's take the opportunity to pick his brains and ask some questions. Because of all the different things that you can do, all the different things that you can do in this industry, because you can get very, very busy doing 1,000 different things. And sometimes we feel busy, but we're not being productive. And at the money end of it, the only place, the only way in which we grow is by bringing new people into our organizations. So before we begin on the technical stuff, Mal, can you just, for people who don't know, you just give us a little bit of background of where you were at when you first came across Asea and why it was that you selected this opportunity as your vehicle?
Sure. So I actually came across this in the first instance in October 2014 when Danny and I went over to Utah together. And so I share with people that whilst when I met Vertis Norton, he had my heart. I really wanted to do business with him. That the timing wasn't kind of appropriate. It wasn't right for me. I was involved in another business. So that was the first time that I kind of met the owners and had a look at this company, this technology. But it was early 2016. We launched here in Australia on the 20th of February 2016. And I was doing a few other things, but I really started in earnest in May of 2016 to actually dig in and start building the business. Why? Because I was not in a very good place financially. That's an understatement. I had no money, nothing, and through circumstances that I won't go into now. But nonetheless, it was a pretty horrendous situation. My back was against the wall, and oftentimes you'll find some of the biggest leaders start from that position. I think one of the things that holds a lot of people up is they're actually too comfortable. A little bit like the dog on the nail. The dog kind of it's kind of making moaning noises, and when you go there, it's sitting on the veranda with a nail, but just can't be bothered to move. And I think a lot of people in the world are at that place. I was way beyond that. I was kind of desperate to do something. And there was a couple of other things. One was having reconnected with Doyley. He showed me where his blood markers were at. Also, he showed me his back office. He showed me what his income was at after pretty much about 10 months. So there were a number of reasons why, also the efficacy of the product. So there's a lot of different reasons why I began at that stage.
Okay, thank you. And obviously, we've said on the outset of this interview that one of your skill sets is the ability to contact and connect with people. But behind that, you've mentioned many times that it's all about having clarity and of vision, because nobody particularly, even though you may be very good at it, nobody particularly enjoys contacting. So can you expand on how you sort of program yourself to get to this, to do this?
So it starts with the most important thing when you come to a business like this, I think anything in life, is having a very clear sense of why you're here, a very clear sense of what it is you want. and also to link in a lot of emotion with that. So there has to be something that drives you. There has to be something that you want desperately. It won't be like, oh, look, I'd really like a new washing machine, or, I need a new set of tires for my cat. It's not likely those things will move you to the point of being able to get a business like this launched. Look, here's the thing. Pretty much everybody that I ever speak to would like to have a 7-figure passive income. I don't think there's anybody on this call that wouldn't like a 7-figure passive income or an 8-figure passive income. It's really about what will motivate you to do that, because the notion of that won't do it. It has to be reasons behind that. Often they're emotional. And so number one, the big thing is to have not just big dreams, but lots of little dreams as well. So they're sequential. So you don't start off with, there was a gentleman I was with last week, and he said 2 things I really want. One is I really want a house. Sorry, I'm just trying to change my view here. Just hang on. I'm just trying to screen out a few things. Just bear with me a second. No, I can't do it. You know what I'm like with technology. Anyway, I'm just being distracted by the screen. How do I eliminate the screen? There we go. I've done it.
On the top.
Yes, and I'm just being distracted by the screen. So there needs to be, if you listen to James Rohn, a great book, which I don't know if anybody can see this, that I'm reading at the moment. It's called The 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness by James Rohn, who I think is one of the most brilliant mentors, motivators. It was actually, James Rohn was Tony Robbins' mentor. And one of the things he says in the book is it's great to have big goals, big dreams. We need those. But we also need small goals. We need the little stepping stones to get the big ones. Oftentimes when people engage with a business like this, and I'm having conversation with people and say, what is it you really want? They say, well, Ferrari. And nothing wrong with that, but it won't come at direct to 700. You have to have a reason to move yourself to direct to 700 first, then to bronze, then to silver. So it's like climbing a mountain, and you have to really know what it is that's going to drive you up the mountain. In fact, as you move higher up the mountain, it becomes even increasingly more important to move on up the mountain, because you get more and more comfortable. As you move higher up the mountain, the income goes up, and the desire and the requirement and the need to keep moving and driving becomes increasingly significant. People say, I often ask people, if you were making $500,000 a year, would you continue to build the business? And people say, oh, absolutely, of course. I said, have you ever made $500,000 passive before? No. I said, so probably you won't know that, and the questions until you get there. Every one of us is on our own journey, our own individual journey on up the mountain, and every one of us is different. The way we think is different, how we behave is different, our visions, our dreams, and a business like this allows us to be able to do that. It really is a smorgasbord. But the number one priority in building a business like this, ahead of all the techniques, ahead of all the knowledge, ahead of all the understanding of the compensation plan, is really to know what moves us, what drives the driver, what motivates the motivator. And I spent a lot of time working on this, resetting my visions, my dreams. And there's an old saying, walk a mile, see a mile. My vision today is very much bigger than it was 2 years ago, for obvious reasons. When you're making, a few $100s a month, you can, visualize maybe eating out, having dinner out once a month. But when you make a little bit more, then your vision changes. And so it becomes progressive. But you need answers to the small things before you get to the big things. And it's important in a business like this to do that, because building a business like this is a journey. It's a process. I know a lot of people want it to be an event, but it's not an event. It's a process. And the great saying of people massively overestimate what they can do in a year, and massively underestimate what they can do in two or 3 years. In other words, people are short-term thinkers, most of us, including me in this. Most of us want it all, like the old Queen song. I want it all, and I want it now. And a business like this, it takes delayed gratification. And that's not a word that people like. The same as discipline is not a word that people like, but they're very significant, very important in a business like this. So a business like this ultimately is, number one, know what it is you want, really know what it is you want. People say, well, I don't know what I want. I say, well, you have to find it. You've got to go looking. You've got to go into the travel agency. You've got to go and test drive a car, or step on the back of a yacht or a boat or a whatever it is that moves you. I also think philanthropic reasons can come, but they generally come after those initial things. I've never seen anybody, for example, build it because they wanted to help a charity. I've never seen anybody do that. I've had a lot of people say that, but I've never seen anybody do it. I've never seen anybody build it to get their wife out of work. I've heard many of them said that, but I've never seen anybody do that. It needs to be something. The motivator has to motivate the motivator. If I'm getting on the phone every single day, I need to have a reason for me to do that, not for somebody else. I've got to motivate me. And knowing the reasons why are very, very important. In fact, they're vital in a business like this.
So it's kind of like the oxygen mask. Put it on yourself first, and it's not selfish, because by the time you help yourself, you're able to help lots of other people as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose, is that what you would say makes a difference? Because with people having a strong desire so that they're able to do this every day, because I've seen, I'm sure you have, some really good contactors, like when I've heard them make an incredible phone call, but they don't really move anywhere because they make one once a month, you know. So what is it that drives somebody to you're better off making 5 dodgy phone calls every day than one really good one once a month? And
yeah, I think the answer to that lies in a number of different things, and I could spend a lot of time going into this. But here's what I've learned over the years, many years of being in this industry. Generally, we can build this in a 90-day focus. Most of us, to go beyond that, 2 reasons. Number one, because to get this plane off the ground, it takes some intensity. The same as if you go to the airport and you hop on a jet, and the pilot says, look, I'm not, I had a big night last night. I don't feel very strong today. And I don't know if I can put the throttles right down to the maximum, but I'll see how I go. I'll try, I'll give it a go, do my best. Maybe I'll just get them a quarter throttle down. You would be off that plane as fast as you can, because you know he's not going to get it off the ground and he's going to hit something really soon. And look, let's be frank, 95% of the people that come to this business, that's what they do. They don't give it enough throttle to get it airborne. They get frustrated because it doesn't get airborne, because they're not putting enough into it to get it off the ground. And then it becomes frustrating. And my personality, I know me well. I get bored really easily. If this isn't exciting, if I'm working with somebody who wants to build it really, really slowly, I'm very open with it. I say, look, I'm probably not your man then, because I get bored like that. If it's not growing quickly, if there's no action, I get bored. Now, if there's no action, I make the action. I don't wait for it. I create the action, and I create the action by doing enough, putting enough activity in to make it work. So there are principles that drive a business like this. If I was starting today, there's 3 keys that I would share with people. Number one, be very clear on why you're doing it. That might be something simple like, I really need an extra $500 a month. I really need that. Desperately, I need $500 a month. That's okay. Let's put a plan together to do that within the next 30 days. Could be 60 days. And then we would put a plan together of, what is required in the business? What does it look like? The second thing I would do with that person, as you know, is I would ask them to listen to an audible, read a book, become involved in personal growth and development at least 30 minutes a day. If their people skills were really, really poor and they had never done anything, that they might need to do an hour a day. It's a little bit like eating. It's that important to driving a business like this. And then the third key, again, which a lot of people don't like, is be persistent every day, every day, every day. Now, one of the things I'm doing at the moment, which you're aware of, I spoke about this the other day, is, I promised Maxie to take him to Vanuatu. Now, I could take Maxie to Vanuatu tomorrow, financially, but this is a corporate trip, complimentary corporate trip that I want to take him on. I've told him I'm taking him on. So we've got until the end of September to qualify for that. So what I've done there is I put myself on the line again, and I become accountable again. And so what I've done is I've said, okay, what do I need to do that in that short period of time? And the goal that I've set is to contact 5 people a day, which is the reason I need to get off this phone call at about 1:45, because I need to get on it before I go and pick up the boys. And that's my number one thing that I've got to do today, is make 5 new personal phone calls. And the reason I do that is because I'm accountable to a number of people in my group that are also doing this. So I'm very transparent. I don't manage. I don't tell people what they need to do. I do what I need to do, and then other people buy into that. So I've got now probably 8 to 10 people that are doing that with me to qualify, and we're each accountable to each other. There's a big lesson in that. Close the back doors, burn the bridge. Don't just burn the bridge, blow it up. Too many people got back doors left, right, and center, and it's too easy for all of us to wander through them. If you blow up the bridge, you've got nowhere back, no backing out. I can promise you this, any one of you on this call, you make 5 calls a day for the next 90 days, 5 days a week, 5 new calls a day, 5 days a week for 90 days. I promise you, I might be the biggest dork in the world, but I'll have some good things happening within 90 days. I promise you.
Yeah.
I can't fail. It has to happen, whether you're experienced or not, whether your phone call is good or not. If your phone call is not good, make it good. Practice, 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 practice. How do you get good at anything? Practice with a coach. Practice, but with a coach. If you're practicing without a coach, it's like the golfer who's got a really, really bad slice, and then he gets somebody who says, keep doing what you're doing, mate. Then you'll end up with a really, really, really bad slice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you need to, if it's not working, you need to find a mentor, a coach, somebody can fine tune you to help you to make those phone calls.
That's really good, and that's why this interview is really important, because we're going to get to those training nitty-gritties in a second. But if somebody, you kind of already touched on it, but for somebody, let's say, who's getting started today, what would be an adequate goal? Because if we don't put a parameter on it, they might think that, 1 phone call a week is a good goal. What's a good goal for somebody to start getting some activity happening?
So if I'm with somebody, that question depends on who I'm talking to. So if I'm talking to somebody who's a veteran in the industry, coming over, looking at Asea, or they've had experience before, or they know how to pick up a telephone, that might be anywhere between 1 call a day and 5 calls a day. It really depends. The answer to the question is, tell me what you want and how desperate are you to get it?
Right.
This notion of being average, I found if you do what average people do, you'll have what average people have. If you want to step up and be above average, then do what the average people won't do. I didn't say it's convenient. I didn't say it's easy. It really depends on how fast you want to transform your life from where it is now to a 6 or 7 figure a year passive income. And look, I have not been consistent all the way through. I look back on my 2 and a bit years with Asea. Could I have done more? Absolutely. I could have done more. In hindsight, I could have done more. I guess I grew as fast as I grew through the situations and the challenges that I had. But I can tell you this, when you know what you want, when you're passionate about wanting something badly enough, and you develop yourselves, personal growth, a half an hour to an hour a day, I can tell you without that ingredient, this isn't going to fly, at least not to the higher levels. And then it's being consistent. Now, Bob Proctor talks about this. Where does persistence come from? It comes from the dream. You're not born with it. I don't have it naturally. If I had my way right now, I'd probably rather be on Reunion Island or Mauritius, lying on the beach and having a couple of pina coladas and going for a dip when it gets too hot. That's what I'd rather be doing. But building a business like this in the window of opportunity we have will allow me to be able to go to those places in the near future whenever I want to. That comes back to persistence. Whatever you do, if it's 1 call a day, if you're starting, do 1 call a day every day. Train yourself to be resilient and persistent. Now, then next week, let's do 2. If your brain screens out a message that I give somebody, so if I say 5 a day to people and it scrambles their mind, then it's too high. Then don't do that. Then start at 1, do that for the first week or 2 weeks, and then move it up to 2. Trish Schwenkler teaches people 2 a day, 2 a day, 2 a day. We're doing 5 a day because we're in a window here of time between now and the end of September. I've been doing this now. Tomorrow it'll be 2 weeks. And I've registered. I've got another one going in tonight. I think I've registered from that so far. I think it's 7 or maybe 8 people already.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now, I can tell you without doing that, those people wouldn't have been in.
Yeah.
Because I'm focused on, putting more personals in. Now, I figure if I need to do that, folks in my group are watching and they're kind of following as well.
Yeah, that's right. So the question that might be on someone's mind is, I'd make 1,000 phone calls if I could just find people to call. Where are you finding people to call, and where could somebody source a list if they're ready to start getting into their 5 phone calls a day?
So there's a number of places where people find their list. You find your list off contacts from social media, from Messenger, from people you've known in emails, by contacting people that you've known in the past. I have people say to me, I don't know anybody, and I sit down with them for an hour and they come up with 150 people. It's really just sitting down. It's not thinking about who is going to be good at this. It's not that at all. It's just making a names list. So let me ask you this question to the people on the call. What are we today? Friday, no, Thursday, maybe Wednesday in America.
Yeah.
If I said to every one of you, I'll get together with you on Sunday, and I'm going to be bringing a briefcase full of money, cash, real live cash. And for every name that you have down on a list, I will give you $1,000 in cash. I guarantee you people would come up with a huge list. So I would say, would you like me to bring a little briefcase or a big briefcase? And they'd say, a big briefcase full of cash. Thank you very much. Why? Because they're not thinking about the business. They're just thinking about a list of names. They don't care who's on it, where they know them from, how they remember them, what they do, what they don't do, whether they're rich, poor, or indifferent, whether they got one eye, or it doesn't matter. They're just a name on a list and $1,000. That's how you make a names list. You make a names. I increase my names list by meeting people on a plane, but I don't go out looking for people. They come to me. So I don't go out to fang people or to, I'm not a prospecting vampire.
No.
I just attract people by my thoughts, and people ask me, what is it you do? And so I say, look, let me, I engage them in conversation, and sometimes I send them information. But for most people, I had a lady, I think I mentioned the other day, last year, she said, I just haven't got anybody to call. I said, do you do the Facebook? And she said, yeah, I do Facebook. And I said, how many people have you got? She said, maxed out 5,000. I said, right. So I think you've got people you can contact.
Yeah.
Again, she was thinking of, who do I know that'll build an Asea business? I don't know who's going to build an Asea business. If I knew that, I'd go straight to them. I never know. I just work the numbers. So, if I was in a new town, if you put me in a new town, I would learn to have conversations. Look, I'm new to the area. I would talk to people. I'm new to the area. I'm developing a business in this area. I'm looking for some key people. Would you know anybody in this area that is looking for a way to generate some extra income? I mean, I would have conversations. I would learn a script, and then I would practice. Now, I might need to modify it, the same as I did with my phone call with Asea. I've changed my phone call. I've modified it to something I'm happy with now.
And Mel, do you, so moving into the phone call now, do you talk to people about health or about business?
Business. Always business first. My second question, if they're not looking for an income opportunity, is about health. I think there's a great saying, which I mentioned on the webinar the other day, questions are the answers. If you're asking people about health questions and about the product and about information on the product, how it'll cure the wart in their nose, and we've got a really good product for that, the answers that you're going to get are customers. You're going to have people say, I'd like to try the product. And you're going to have lots and lots of customers. There's a lot of people in the business that have got a lot of people they've enrolled. They aren't doing anything, but they're just customers. That's fine. But it's a slower way of building the business. I'm not saying you can't build it that way, but I was challenged with this in 2016 when I'm looking at my organization and think, wow, it's not growing as fast as I wanted it to grow. And then I looked at why. I did a course early last year with Jeff Carlisle, and he completely changed my thinking, gave me permission to go and build the business the way I wanted to build it, which is to find leaders, key people. And so I started the year last year as a gold, and I finished the year as a triple diamond because I changed my conversations with people. So what I do building this is I'm looking for my board of directors. And so I'm not looking for a customer. I'm looking for my board of directors. Now, indirectly, that will reach a lot more people anyway. It will reach a lot more people. You have a few leaders that bring on 1,000 upon 1,000 upon 1,000 of people. You'll reach a lot more people with this technology, and you will doing it one at a time by enrolling customers.
Absolutely. So before we move on to the actual script of your phone calls, if you don't mind sharing that with us, I'll just throw in the little kind of caveat that we did when we said on Monday night that one of the occasions where it would be really probable to lead with the health is if you are a health practitioner and people are coming to you already to have health conversations. And of course, you would position yourself, you're already positioned as a health expert. It would be totally natural to start the conversations that way, to be able to, in your day-to-day job, include the product as part of slipstream it right into your business, and then find leaders and develop business builders through the product door originally. But I really agree, it's a mistake people make, that we go out sort of like ambulance chasers at the beginning, finding it very easy to go, hey, here's some cream for your back. And then we don't get the exponential growth that we're hoping for. We don't get business builders, and it's absolutely spot on. It's because we're not asking for business builders, we're asking for customers. So if we want to find some leaders, if we're looking for some business developers, how do you call them, Mel?
So my conversation is more about piquing interest in the technology. So I choose my words very carefully. I use words like excitement, disruptive, technology. So my phone call, if I'm phoning, let's say, Bill Smith for, let's say, Julie Watts, my phone call goes exactly like this. Hi, Bill, it's Malcolm Sword. You and I haven't actually met before. I'm a friend and business associate of Julie Watts. And Bill will say, oh, yeah, I know Julie really well. How's she doing? I'll say, yep, Julie's doing really well. Thank you very much. I'll say, Bill, look, the reason that we're calling is that Julie and I are in the process of launching a very exciting disruptive cellular health technology to market, both into Australia and also up through into Asia. This is a technology, a disruptive technology called redox signaling molecules, which unless you're from the medical profession, you've probably not yet heard of, but it is being hailed as one of the most significant medical breakthroughs of our lifetime. I can tell you that commercially, this company has reached $100 million of turnover, and we forecast that within the next 4 to 5 years, that will be at $1 billion of turnover. And we are looking for people to help us to drive this to market. Bill, may I ask you, here's the $1 million question. Bill, may I ask you, are you open to looking at other income options? And there's the thing. Now, Bill's going to say one of 3 things. Tell me more, send me info. Great, can do that. In fact, I invariably do that anyway. No, I'm not really happy doing what I'm doing. That's fine. And if he says no, I'm going to say, no problem. Bill, may I ask you a second question? Do you know somebody really closely, personal friend or family, that is really struggling with a major health challenge? And in about 30%, 25 to 30% of cases, people say, yes, I do. And I say, would you mind if I send you some information? I believe this technology will help them. But my primary question is about the opportunity. And so if they say, yes, please send me some information, I mix that up. Sometimes I'll go and meet with them personally. Other times I'll send them to a webinar, one of the live webinars that either you're doing or Julie or one of the diamonds here is doing. Or I'll send them a standard email. I have a standard email that I send out to people. But I do follow up. Always the money's in the follow-up. So when I say to them, I'll send you some information, John, and what I'll do is I'll make a diary note, come back to you in 48 hours to answer any questions that you might have, and then we can go to the next step from there. Is that fair enough? So it's a really good question to close with. Is that fair enough? Because you're asking permission, and people say, no, don't. That's not fair. They never say that. Is that fair enough? It's a really good question to end a conversation with. Is that fair enough? People don't say, oh, no, that doesn't sound fair at all. They never say that.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think what we should pick up from that is that you've set up the follow-up, which is one of the places where we get stuck sometimes. I've found myself sending out information and then spending time sort of, 2 weeks going by, trying to catch someone to see, hey, have you had a look at the video? And it's frustrating. But it's, so do you have that? Do you find sometimes that it's difficult to get back to people, or how do you get people across to a decision after that phone call?
Well, here's the thing. Some people don't want you to get back to them. You'll know if they don't answer the phone repeatedly, they don't want you to get back to them. So you kind of get your own answer. And I might send them a text saying something like, I missed your call the other day. Do you have a level of interest? Is there anything more I can help you with? I'll try and re-engage with them after 3 or 4 days. If they don't come back to me, I'll assume that we don't go any further. Now, I may get back to put them back into my database and go back to them in 6 months' time. Why? Because people's circumstances change. My circumstances changed. Most people on this call have had experiences in their life when circumstances change. You lose your job, you lose a business, you do a property development that goes pear-shaped, something happens, somebody dies, somebody leaves, something goes wrong, and your whole world changes. That's life. So whilst they may be in a good place today, no summers ever stay summers. We live in seasons in our life. If we're in a summer right now, I'm in a summer right now. I've learnt to prepare for the winter because that's the seasons of life. We get summers, springs, autumns, and winters. And so some people that are in a spring or a summer right now, I know, they may not, but I do, it won't last. So going back to them in 6 months' time, if they're a no for now. And often I'll say that to people, is that a no for now or a no forever? And you would be amazed how many people say, no, it's just a no for now. Fine. Do you mind if I keep in touch with you? Maybe come back to you in 6 months. And they'll say, no, that's fine. I'll get back to them in 3 months. They won't remember how long it's been, but I'm going to keep in touch with them. I don't annoy them every single day. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not annoying people. I'm not doing that. I'm not becoming a networking bore. I don't want to do that. It gives the industry a bad name. But, you know, I do keep that contact going. I'm registering a fellow tonight. I engaged with him initially probably 18 months ago.
I think that's really important to note. It's a really good point, because sometimes when I know when I come across somebody that goes, no, thanks, and I might be really surprised. Why is that the case? And I've put them in the no forever pile without really checking with them. And yet when I think about real life people that build the business, you really were you were approaching me about this. You were contacting me. We spoke about this for about a year before I engaged in the business, and you weren't pestering about it, but you held it in front frequently. And I think about lots of leaders, it's seldom the very first contact that they went, yep, great, penny dropped. So it's as long as it's done correctly, I think it's important to note that there should be a follow-up process as well. So that's really good. So
it's learning to be a professional.
Yeah.
You know, we're professional business builders, professional. What we really do is develop organizations, and organizations are built around finding key people. And so, you know, there's a level of professionalism that we need to have, courtesy, respect for other people. And we develop that by listening to lots of books and reading lots of books and you know, honing our people skills.
So how do you, let's say that you are in the follow-up, you've rang them 48 hours later and they did actually go, yep, great, I had a look at the video. How do you transition from there to getting them, you know, opening an account, to getting them started? What's the questions that you would ask to get them engaged?
So if they you know, I could ask, what did you like best about the information? My preferred question is, John, is your interest in this commercial or is your interest for your own health? And they'll answer that one way or the other. If they say commercial, I said, terrific. Okay, so let me ask a couple of other questions. I mean, by this stage, I'm probably going to get together with them. If they say terrific, what I can do right now is to simply open your account. Let's get that going. Let's get the product on its way to you so you can have a product experience. And then let me get together with you, and I'll go through a strategy with you on how to build this. You know, so the reason that this fellow I'm registering, enrolling tonight, I went up to Bundaberg to see him last week. It's about a 3.5 hour drive. And I just said to him, he said, look, I'm doing really well. I said, that's great. He's earning, you know, $180,000 a year. Not, you know, it's reasonable, but it's a job. And I said, Pete, where's your exit strategy? And he kind of looked at me like, I haven't got one. And I said, he's 53. I said, well, you probably need one. And that was it. It was that question that disrupted his thinking that he was doing well into, yeah, but I can never get out of this.
Yeah.
And I know he's had a stroke. He's already had a stroke about 7 or 8 years ago. I'm not saying he's going to have another one, but he also knows that if he gets taken out of play again, then that 180 goes to zero overnight, gone, and he's got nothing. So it's about reading people and prodding and getting people to think. You know, Dexter used to teach us, you got to teach people, get people to think. Number one, people don't think. That's the biggest thing. People do not think. They do, they act, they go about their business day in, day out, day in, day out. But to teach people how to think, then teach people how to think properly. So I'm always kind of jabbing at them, you know, with their thoughts. And that's what I do with me too. I'm always jabbing my thoughts. Like, why do you think that way? Why are you thinking? Why do you think that? Because one of the things I had to learn was the way I thought may not be the right way to think. Oh, yeah, but it's always the way I've thought. That doesn't make it right. It's why it's good to work with a mentor. So I have 2 counselors that kind of constantly prod my thinking, you know, to keep me on my toes and keep me moving. Because here's what happens in life. Everything's got an opposite. You know, good and bad, night and day. Everything has an opposite, an equal and opposite. So does personal growth. If we're not moving on, we're going backwards. You don't stay in middle ground. Anybody who tries to hold station, I guarantee they're going back. Guarantee it. It's why the English lost the World Cup. They 1-0 up, and they spent the rest of the game trying not to lose. You do not win in life by trying not to lose. You win in life when you make a determination, I'm going to win. And so it's about constant movement. It's about constant growth and becoming all that we can become. You will never become $1 million earner until you think and behave and act like $1 million earner. It's not going to happen. It happens through changing the mindset and thinking differently. So when I'm with people as best I can, I try and prod them to think about where they're going. And then I try and coach people to become more. I can see you're tired there, Christina. You had a long flight, have you?
No, I'm not tired.
I can see your eyes going. Oh no, you've had a very long flight. You're doing. What time is it there, out of interest?
No, it's like 7:39. No, I'm really, right. I'm really listening. And
I know you've heard it all before, see? Oh, he says the same thing all the time. You're exactly right.
I have the delays. Look, no, I'm absorbing it and really picking up. I was just going to make the point that people should note that even though, you've really got a lot of experience I don't really know anybody with more experience in network marketing than you. I really don't. And in terms of the length of time and, the success history there, and yet you're still under the mentorship of two people very closely. And I think that's a really big hint that you just dropped into the conversation, because often people aren't used to learning. They kind of had a period of learning when they went to uni and they learned a craft, and then they've stopped maybe developing, and they come into this business and I have people like this that become islands. They don't not taking advantage of the mentorship, of the team, of the leverage. And then, unless we can find somebody who's got what we want to teach us how to get it, we'll stay where we are. Because if we knew what we had to do, if we were the person already who could have that success, we'd have it already. So that was
let me just read you a couple of things. This is from this book by James Rohn, 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness. Let me just read you this. This is under a chapter called The Miracle of Personal Development. And he was taught this by his mentor, Mr. Shoaff. He said, so here's the great axiom of life. To have more than you've got, become more than you are. And on the flip side of that, unless you change how you are, you'll always have what you've got. And there you go. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. If you do not change, if I don't change, then what I've got now is all I'll ever have. And look, there's a sense of that's okay, but I don't serve anybody else if I stop. I don't help people. I don't help people on this call. I don't help the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that are in the group and the hundreds of thousands that are yet to come. I don't help them if I stop. And if I don't keep growing, I've learnt this the hard way. And it's not a pressure thing. I actually get a huge buzz out of thinking how far is what is possible, how far can we push the envelope with this. I won't see an opportunity like Asea again in my lifetime. Some of you that might be on this call, that you might be in your 20s, you may see something like this again, but you might have to wait till my age. You might have to wait another 40 years before this comes around again. I won't see it again. And so, for me, having been in the industry for 26 years, this is the answer to prayer. This is the answer to my dreams. And so I treat it like that. This is something I value because I value everything about, leaving a legacy for my children, my 8 children, going out feeling like I accomplished something rather than where I was a couple of years ago. And does it take discipline? Yes, it does. Does it take discomfort? Yep, it does. Inconvenience? Yep. I think a lot of people expect success to be rolled out in a red carpet. It's not. Success is always built on inconvenience. I had this conversation with one of my guys this morning. He said, I'm struggling to find time. I said, absolutely. I said, what's the solution? Everything has a yin and yang. Everything has an opposite. Where's your solution? I didn't say that for you to be financially free by the end of this year is going to be easy. I didn't make that statement. How badly do you want it? How badly do you want success? And a lot of people give it lip service and they talk about it, but they just don't want to push themselves and fight for it enough to make it happen. And that's why this is very much the personal development of this is really important. Anybody who's on this call who reads or listens to an Audible 30 minutes to 1 hour a day, I promise you, this time in 1 year, you won't think the same, you won't act the same, you won't be the same, and you wait and see what happens in your life. You wait and see what your life attracts. When you change your thinking, people are drawn to you. Builders are drawn, people magnetize, because birds of a feather do flock, good and bad. If your thoughts are crappy, you're going to attract crappy people around you. That's the laws, these are principles.
Mal, thank you. You know what? I think that's a really awesome place to wrap up, and maybe invite a couple of questions if anybody has anything that they'd like to check in with Mal quickly before we let him loose on the phones for the afternoon. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to check in or make a comment? I think it's been Tracy's commented there. It's great content. I really think there's so much gold in there, Mal. We're really going to pass this recording around. There's a lot of really big hints in that.
Then let me just share this with people on the call as my parting gesture. For those of you on the call that really want to develop a big income with Asea, and I'm talking about a very big income, the one thing that I would recommend that you do is, and it's easy for you guys, is come to Dallas in a few weeks' time. I'm actually doing one of the breakout sessions in Dallas on person. That's not why you're coming, by the way. You'll come because that's where the leaders are. You'll come as I go because I want to get around the biggest income earners in the world with this company to learn from them. I don't have all the answers. I'm not the highest income earner with Asea. I'm there to learn. But if you want to be a big hitter with this company, that's where the leaders will be. And I've got a large crew coming from Australia, which is a lot further than from where you are in your country. For you, it's only an hour by plane or 2 or 3. It's easy. But your life and your destiny is shaped by the decisions that you make when nobody's looking, but you have a feeling in your heart that that's the right thing to do. Now, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do for you, because if you're on this call because you want to make $22.50 a month from Asea, you don't need to go. But if you're here to set up a legacy for your family, to retire from whatever it is that ails you, to leave an above average life and to be able to help and empower tens of thousands of other people, then that would be the best decision right now that I would encourage you to make. And I really look forward to meeting you there. And if perchance you got some value out of this, then you could even buy me a cold beer there.
Mal, thank you very much. And thank you guys for joining on this call. I'll get this recording out. I know there were a few other people that wanted to hear this. And we'll send it around to some Aussies as well. Thanks, cool. Mal. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. All the best. Wish you well, everyone. Hope to see you in Dallas. See you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.